Hey, friends. Welcome to the Way of Valor. I am your host, Angie Taylor, and I am incredibly honored today to have our next guest joining us. I've literally followed him for years, have learned at the feet of this guy. He has a profound ministry. Danny Silk is an author, he's a speaker. He has life-changing conferences and resources drawn from decades of experience as both a social worker, an advocate, a spouse, a parent, a grandparent, a leader. He's the president and co-founder of Loving on Purpose, a ministry to families and communities worldwide. Danny's passion centers around helping people build, strengthen, and heal vital relationships. And Danny and I were talking right before this call. Actually, I have to laugh about this, Danny, because we were talking right before this call about, hey, how many books have you authored? And he counts on one hand and he says 5. And I thought, well, that's strange because I saw so many more books online with your name on it. And he's like, oh, you mean co-authored as well, which most of us who have written one book would use all co-author, author. I love your humility and your grace in this area, but Danny has profound resources online. He has books like Loving Your Kids on Purpose. I love that one. Keep Your Love On, Powerful and Free, Foundation of Honor. And the list really just goes on. Danny, I could keep going, but I want to give you all kinds of room to talk and impart your wisdom on us. But welcome to the Way of Valor.
Thanks, Angie. It's great to be here. I appreciate the accolades. I really didn't. I don't count. So I had to really think about it, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Danny, you have a profound ministry. I've had the good pleasure of, in recent years, getting a little more close up to your ministry through your daughter and her grandkids and your grandkids who actually attend Valor. And what I can tell you that is always the testament to your legacy are the things you're teaching being handed down from generation to generation. That's the hardest thing as a leader. I know, as somebody that runs schools, is like, but how are my kids doing? And I can attest to firsthand the privilege of knowing your daughter, Brittany, and son-in-law, Ben, and your grandkids, the profound impact that your life and legacy has on them. And I just am curious, how has that happened for you? Because I think that's what every parent and leader longs for.
I wish I could say I did it on purpose, like it was some strategic plan of mine, but I think it's the fruit of just paying attention to what God has called you to do, who he's called you to be, just doing everything you know to do to be faithful in that line of destiny, having the courage to follow him when it's sacrificial or scary, making hard decisions that alter forever, giving something up. What you think is you're giving something up to obey, and it translates into more than you could ever ask, think, or imagine. Just a series of those things, and protecting your connection with your kids through all of that. So as long as I prioritize that connection, that we're going to find ourselves moving together as a pack down this line of destiny.
Man, that's so good. And I do think that that's so important for us to understand that idea of, first that authenticity in my relationship with God and obedience to the call, because what they see happen in your home is what they repeat, not what you say. But then that push to keep connections with them. You have a book, your whole ministry actually is called Loving on Purpose, but your book called Loving Kids on Purpose. And, every parent I know loves their child, but not every parent loves their child on purpose. And so I would love for you to define the difference in I love my child, of course I love my child, to I love my child on purpose.
I think again and again, that on purpose piece speaks to you have a choice. You have a choice with how you respond. You have a choice with the goal in mind. You have a choice with the impact that you have. You as a parent, it's kind of scary how much freedom you have. I mean, that child really can't fight back. There's just it's you're a dictator in so many ways. This child is trapped in your country, and they just are going to experience your government and your authority. The spirit of your culture, they're going to just live in what you create. So if you don't have some purpose that is to build and to encourage and to empower them to be uh, thriving children, if you don't have that purpose in mind, then essentially they're just going to catch what you have left over from giving it everywhere else. There you can call it love, but really it's more like responsibility. I responsibility to my children instead of I love them on purpose. And it's sad when people pour their life into parenting their children, and then it all blows up when their kids are teens because the the kids have turned into guerrilla soldiers who are now fighting back against the tyranny of the culture of the family. And you're like, yeah, that's a bummer, but that's because they grew up in an environment where there was no real purpose given to the relationships and the quality of the relationships and the strengthening of the relationships. So on purpose means I had a plan to bolster my connection because we were going to need it.
I love what you're saying, and I think it's really important. I am curious, though, because, and I'm sure you've encountered this too, where parents have their own traumas, own wounds from the past. And often, rather than being fully healed personally in that space, they are trying to love their kid in a way that makes sure that none of those traumas or wounds impact their kids. And what I've seen is oftentimes if a parent was really bullied when their kids, when they were a child, their kids, they're overly protective or defensive and almost having their child become this victim because their intention is good, but because of their own wounds. How do you speak to that, and how do you help parents even be self-aware enough to recognize you're parenting out of your triggers?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I saw a meme or read it somewhere, but I remember saying, if you don't take the time to heal your wounds, then you're going to bleed all over the people that never cut you. And it's just the way of relationships, and hurt people is is part of the momentum of the sins of the fathers visit generation after generation after generation after generation, and you're like, I promised I would never do that. So what happens is, I I I said I'll never do to my kids what my parents did to me. And
Right.
so I swing back over and I end up injuring my children by not preparing them. You know, believe it or not, a rough upbringing prepared you for a lot of things. You steal all that away from your kids when you do it all for
So
them,
good.
and you
Hmm.
leave them ill-equipped. And what they do is they now have a vacuum, and your abusive parents fill that vacuum in their life. They will
Wow.
literally attract what you tried to chase away, because you didn't prepare them to be healthy enough to set boundaries, to tell the truth, and to take good care of themselves.
That will preach right there. That was incredibly profound. If you have a family right now, and I think we have a lot of families in our country that are in a place of, man, we're just trying to figure out, our family's a mess and we don't even know where to begin to try to pull things together. What would your top three pieces of advice be for them?
Um, I think it's got to start with, do a good job with you. Do a good job with you. You're the leader. So, the family's going where you're going. And if you're going in the tank with fear and uh, anxiety, the results of anxiety, which is depression or hopelessness, or you're just negative. You just have this constant kind of complaining thing about what's not working for you, and you just act powerless or whatever. Your whole family's going into that, and that becomes the culture of your environment. So do a
Mhm.
good job with your heart. Do a
Okay.
good job with uh, staying connected to power, love, and a sound mind. Stay connected in that. Make sure that love and hope is your counselor, and not fear and hopelessness.
So good.
Uh, I would say lead in that. Make sure that you listen well to the people around you,
Mm.
especially your kids. Do it. Be the best listener in the conversation, and protect that connection, because you're going to need it when the chips are down, when your kid introduces a new thing they're learning in life. It's going to scare you, could possibly hurt you. Hang on. Hang on,
Mhm.
protect that connection. Likewise, teach them the value of the connection by demonstrating the value of the connection.
Yeah, that's really good. And how about, we talked at the beginning of loving our kids on purpose. And I think a lot of parents have in their minds of, I'd love to be able to keep the mom home and just be mother, but our finances won't allow that. I'd love to put my kids in a private school, but our finances won't allow that. I'd love to spend more time with our kids, but I have to travel for work. And, like those are very real things that families are dealing with every day. And how do you help families understand how to build a culture in their home where their family is priority despite the financial burdens that we hold today, especially in our current economy?
So much of our behavior flows out of our priorities, and we can say with our mouth that our priority is my relationship with God, but I can tell by your calendar and your checkbook really where all your priorities go. And if there's no plan, if there's no purpose behind protecting those priorities, then other people's plans and priorities and other people's decisions will dictate the quality of what you end up living in. So I would say, for starters, you've got to know who God has called you to be, what God has called you to do. Are you getting your instructions from Him? Because if He says, I want you to go there, I want you to spend money there, I want you to prioritize that, and you do, here comes
Yeah,
heaven.
so
Here comes
true.
heaven. And heaven blows open doors that no man can close. You have a grace on your life that not one demon in hell can stop, and no economic issues and no employer issues. It's just amazing what happens when you know that your life is covered in the grace of obedience. Once you dedicate that, I think that's, the whole idea behind generosity is it invites a grace into that vulnerability where you are simply obeying God. So in doing so, I think that's the smartest way to live, A, and then B, it's a promise.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so true. In fact, I was just having this conversation the other day with somebody that had asked me, "Hey, Angie, do you believe in tithe?" And and I was very upfront and I said, "I would be honestly terrified not to tithe." Okay, like not only do
Me
I
too.
believe in it, not only
Me
do I
too.
believe in it, the faithful hand of God in our life over the years has been so evident because I to your point that trusting when God calls you to something, God provisions his what he calls you to. He provisions for that, and so I think that tithe, and that's the place he says test me on, is such an important piece of the equation for families.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty ironic that, the Bible, Jesus tells Satan in the wilderness, don't test the Lord your God. And then Malachi says, test the Lord here,
Yeah.
and like, oh my gosh, that's an invitation. Will I not open heaven? Will I not, access the storehouses of heaven? Like,
Yeah.
right, it's true. And I've never seen it one time not come true. Not
And
one time.
yeah, no, I'm with you. I bet we could spend an entire podcast on this one topic alone between God providing for your ministry and people and the same on the valor end of it is his faithfulness is profound in this area. And yeah, I mean, if you're listening and right now finances are dictating your lifestyle and your choices, definitely step back and look for ways you're trusting God and walking in obedience to the call that He's placed. That's so good. Uh, I am curious what you guys have working on. Again, there's so many resources you can lay your hands on with your ministry. Valor partners with Loving on Purpose. We enjoy having them at our retreats and honestly promoting your stuff, but because what we long for is whole, healthy families. And you provide so many resources around that. What's the thing right now that you guys are really pushing into and working on?
Well, there's a bunch of areas really. It's so much of it's going online that we have the podcast, the Kylo Show with Brittany and I. We're gonna open up more podcasts in the future, so we're just trying to get as much resource to families as we can. We also have a Kylo University, Keep Your Love On University, which is we're running our pilot right now. Started at the end of January. We have just under 50 people, and we're working out all the bugs. It's amazing. It's so fun. It's so exciting. It's really uh, managing or strengthening the connection between me and God, between me and myself, and me and others. So love the Lord your God, yourself, and others. That is really our template. We are loving every minute of it. It's 16 weeks long. It's 4 hours a week. It's been a blast.
I love
So
that. And
stay tuned.
yeah, go.
And if we don't have your email address, just get on lovingonpurpose.com, give us your email address, and we can keep you posted with all the cool stuff that's coming up.
That's awesome. And guys, we will put in the show notes all the links that he just talked about because we want to make sure you have all of these resources. Um, Danny, what do you see as probably the main barrier that you're seeing for families in really connecting with God in this season and being able to walk in obedience?
Well, probably just that disconnection that happens when I don't pay attention to the connection. On Sunday, I just shared a message at Jesus Culture about the fear of the Lord, and the fear of the Lord is so misconstrued with the fear of being punished by the Lord. And
Mm,
it's really the fear of being disconnected from the Lord. And I think that seems to have left our hearts as a nation, that we are just not tending to what's important to Him, what
mm,
He's doing, uh, what grieves Him, or what disconnects us from Him. And so I think getting back to just really the fear of the Lord, any healthy relationship grieves in disconnection,
mm,
and is there are certain things that I'm aware of. If I do this, I will disconnect. Sherry and I've been we're 39 years this year, and I have a fear of Sherry. Right, I walk in the fear of Sherry, meaning I'm not afraid she's going to punish me. I'm afraid of losing my connection with her.
mm.
So I make
I love
decisions
that.
that manage that connection. I mean, I have all these choices and all these freedoms. And as a young man, I tried to prove that you don't control me, woman, you don't control me. And so I did things knowing that it would injure our connection to
Hmm.
prove that I was free. Well, I wasn't free. I was dumb. I was injuring the relationship
Hmm.
to be selfish. And so my drop down menu as a wise man has come down to I only allow these things in all my choices. I only allow these things because
Mm,
I will not sacrifice my connection with Sherry for any of those so-called freedoms. And the same thing goes with my relationship with the Lord. He doesn't control me. He doesn't
mm,
make me do anything, but I become increasingly aware of what injures our relationship, what breaks his heart, and I
mm.
manage myself within the context of protecting our relationship.
Wow, that's excellent. I'm curious as we've watched this new wave of revival hitting college campuses, what you would say is what's the piece for ushering that into your home, into your community? Um, where would you, how would you talk to people about that?
Well, that's actually how I set up my message, was talking about revival. And I said, why revival? Why do we pray for revival? And it's really to bring us back into this place of connectedness with his presence, with him as a top priority of my life. The fear of the Lord actually reestablishes my priorities. It gives me a fresh perspective of where does the Lord show up in my priorities, or does he?
Hmm.
And it's almost like a fast or a cleanse, like it just reorders everything. And I get back to, oh, that's right. I, I allowed disorder into my heart. And that is what's serving so much anxiety, or serving so much selfishness, or even
Mm,
rebellion or bitterness. So restructuring my priorities is what revival's for. It's not so that I have a woohoo meeting.
right.
It's really that I have an encounter that leaves me changed,
That's good.
reprioritized, and deeply connected going forward.
So good. So good. Probably my number one tip for families right now around this is create quiet space to lean in. I think we live in such a noisy world that is consumed with entertainment, and
Absolutely.
we
Distraction. Yeah.
distraction, absolutely, and leaning in, and giving yourself the space and the time for God to speak is just important. Danny, I am excited for our people that maybe haven't gotten to follow you yet on social media and on your website. Tell us where we find you, and best get to keep up to date with everything you guys are doing.
Well, get on our email list, lovingonpurpose.com. Just give us your email. That way you'll stay informed of the fresh stuff we're doing. Danny Loving on Purpose is the Instagram. I think Danny Loving on Purpose is the Facebook. That's where you find out whatever's going on. And but get on that email list and listen to the podcast, the Kylo Show. We're just telling everybody what we're doing and where we are and how it's going, and how to have whole healthy families that are going to save the world, because I think that is really the solution to so much of the craziness going on is we got to get our families back.
I love that, because at the end of the day, the school can't do it for you. The church can't do this for you.
It's not their job.
It isn't their job. And so I love your ministry. Guys, go follow them, absorb everything they have. I know my personal life has been blessed by all of their work. So Danny, it has been an honor. If you heard doors slamming, Danny has been gracious enough to meet us in a hallway. Today we're
out of my office.
I wasn't gonna out you completely, but we're so grateful that you took the time to share with us today. So blessings on your day, my friend. It was so good to see you, and I'll let you go see if you can get into your office, and good luck with that.